Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you guys here on this 19th, Tuesday the 19th of December. It's getting almost to Christmas time. Could this be the big one? Goodness gracious. Let's get in there and take a look. Operation Prosperity Guardian. That's what they're calling it. Now, what happens when the government tries to fix a problem? You guys ever noticed? They always generate a bigger problem. I must say, now, from what I've heard, these missiles that Hamas is using, and probably the Houthis are using too, they haven't got any really good guidance systems. Now, think about this for a second, okay? They make a missile, they make it, and it only costs them like $500 or $600 or something. It's mostly just gunpowder, you know. It's like it's almost like these rockets kids fire, you know, like they kids put together and stuff. They got no guidance system and stuff. They're very cheap, easy to put together. Now, one of those missiles, how big a target is a ship? So it's not that hard to hit a big target. But how hard is it to hit an incoming missile? So you got a missile flying at your ship, okay? Maybe it's launched by the Houthis. This is what I'm getting at. And you got to take that missile down. That missile's in the air and it's flying really fast. I mean, really fast. And it's a very tiny little target. You need a very accurate guidance system. The United States has these type of guidance systems that can hit a missile in flight. So a missile's heading at the ship, and they have to launch a missile off the U.S. ship to intercept it and stop it. What does that missile cost? With the expensive electronic guidance system. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, most likely. I don't know, maybe, I'm just guessing, but knowing the military, those missiles, let's put it this way, they're not $300 a piece. I can tell you that much right now. They're way more than that. I don't know what they cost. Maybe they cost $30,000, maybe they cost $60,000, maybe they cost, but they're not no $300 a piece. I can guarantee you that. And sometimes they probably have to fire 4 or 5 to stop these incoming missiles fired by the Houthis. So which is costing more? And which is the bigger target? The Houthis have hit this sweet spot right now. In warfare, in all the history of warfare, and there's been things that enemies have done at times where they put in very little effort and it causes a great deal of pain for it goes all the way back to the story in the Bible about little David. He's a little guy, and all he had was a slingshot and a rock he picked up off the ground, which is very little cost. And what did it cost the Philistine army when Goliath fell to the ground dead? You know, I mean, this is the same idea. In war, sometimes there's, this is where the old saying comes. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. The damage has been done with very little effort by the Houthis. They haven't done that much. But what they've done to world trade is absolutely beyond belief, and the effects this is going to have on what we call the free world. You're going to feel it in your pocketbook. But there's a lot more to this story. You know, I'm just scratching the tip of the iceberg here. I could probably talk for an hour on this. But I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty of some of the effects that this has caused. And the damage is already done. The milk has already been spilt. The shipping companies are already having to pay much higher insurance rates for all of their cargo. Already many of these big companies and stuff that ship through there Petroleum companies, shipping companies. I could go off on a long list of shipping companies that said, okay, we're not going to go through the Suez Canal and through the Red Sea any longer. We're going to go around Africa, around Cape Horn, which they've already diverted. Many ships have already diverted. The damage has already been done by the Houthis. The damage is going to impact our economy. And how, you might ask? How is it going to impact our economy? Okay, we're thinking about the stock market right now. Let's take a look. Here we are. We're up 190 points today on the day so far at 37,496. Oh my gosh, look at it. It's higher than it's ever been right now. Look at it. It's absolutely amazing. Why is it so high? Because they believe that the Fed's going to go through a rate cut cycle starting next year. They believe that at least 3 rate cuts are coming down the pike next year. Okay? And they've priced in 125 basis points of cuts. They've priced it in. This is why it shot up from here down here, right here, at around let me see, what was it? There, 32,417, right? It shot up from 32,000 all the way up to 37,400. Okay? Pricing in 125 basis points of cuts next year. And they also priced in more that they perceive coming past that. So it's not just 125 basis points. They figure that that cycle will be in place for 2025 as well. So they're pricing it in. The market is hot, red hot. Who's going to tell them? Who's going to tell them? Who's going to whisper in their ear, hey, listen, guys, listen. Prices, the inflation's going to come back now because of what the Houthis done is going to cost more for all goods. Oil prices are going to go up. And we're going to see inflation on almost all goods you buy. I mean, you go to places like Walmart or wherever. Where do you think those shoes come from? You know, China. And they're on those ships going through Singapore and have to come up through the Suez Canal. In order to, instead of going around the Cape Horn, they got to go around Cape Horn. They're going to have to add more price to those shoes. The Fed sees inflation go up from this. Forget about your rate hike, your cuts coming next year. Who's going to tell the market? Who's going to whisper in their ear that, hey, you guys aren't going to get the Fed's going to hold pat based on what the CPI is going to do. Never forget, guys, never ever forget that the Fed is data dependent. How do you think this is going to affect the data? And when this news gets broken to the market, what do you think's going to happen? Now, here's another thing to think about. The Fed is not going to, they're going to keep with a very tight monetary policy as long as the market's up. So we got to catch 22. As long as the market's up, the Fed's going to stay tight, and the Fed's data dependent, and the Fed's going to react to price increases and CPI data. And also, they react very much toward the jobs, the job market. Okay? Well, they've just put in tremendously good numbers on the job market, and the stock market's at all-time highs. What do you think's going to happen? And then inflation's going to go up because the cost of goods is going to go up because of what's happening with the Houthis. So what do you think's going to happen here? Something's going to have to break. And the Fed's not going to do anything They're going to stay tight and hawkish until something breaks. And so what's going to break? What's behind us right here. This is what's going to break. This has to break because they've priced in something that they're not going to get. It's kind of like a guy, you know. I mean, I used to work in construction. That used to be my big thing when I was younger, you know. I used to, and in fact, I was a contractor, and I was a general. I built houses. I was a contractor, and so here's the thing: you pour a driveway. Say a guy wants to get his driveway poured. Okay, with cement. You got to get a new driveway. He's all happy about it. I'll be able to park 3 more cars in front of my house today. Okay? I'm really happy about this. This is great. So they dig out and they put the forms in and everything to pour the cement. And they say, okay, we got to get a truckload of gravel. And the guy's already called the cement company to bring the trucks of cement out to pour the driveway the next day. Okay, but we got to fill these holes in the driveway first with gravel in the forms before we can pour. So he calls up the gravel company and they say, our trucks are all broke. And they're the only gravel company in the whole county. We can't bring the gravel out. Suddenly you got a big problem because you're not going to be able to pour the cement the next day. He ain't going to get his driveway. Because one thing is snarled up the next thing. This is what's happened over here with the Houthis. This is like not having your gravel delivered. It throws the whole job off. And that's what it throws off. It throws off our whole economy. It's spin-off effects of all these ships. All these ships they don't know where to go right now. They're going in circles over there because of what the Houthis are doing. So how's the government going to fix it? Here we go right here. Operation Prosperity Guardian. Now remember I told you at the start of the show how whenever they try to fix something, they always make it so much worse. The damage has already been done. They go in there and they start fighting with the Houthis. The Houthis are just stuck right on there to Saudi Arabia. The whole thing could just erupt at this point. And we could see attacks on oil infrastructure. See, 4 million barrels a day are at stake here that could be lost. 4 million barrels a day off the market of world oil production is what's at stake. I'm not saying they're going to lose 4 million barrels, but if the Middle East were to erupt into a massive war and this thing were to spread, oil infrastructure could be attacked. And throwing this whole thing in here with Operation Prosperity Guardian, getting into a war with the Houthis directly, you know. We got Iran involved in this situation. And Russia and those countries are connected. It's all connected together on this thing. Sides have already been drawn. Could we say could you see us going back into a situation like occurred in the 1970s with big long lineups at the pump and you're willing to pay anything? You see the sign up there. You're parked. Okay? At the service station, or near the service station, a big long line of cars. There's 50 cars in front of you waiting to pump. Okay? And the sign says $7.95 a gallon. And you'd be happy to get it. That's what the oil embargoes back in the 1970s looked like. We could be facing that again. If you can imagine, on top of everything else that we've been through these past few years. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. With the stock market collapses, you know, and this has an effect upon the equity of all these companies that are on the stock market, and a lot of them are struggling right now. It's not like things were a couple years ago. back when money was floating around the system. Now there's a liquidity drawdown by the Fed. So what we would see happen is if we get a crash in the markets, the Fed will at some point step in. But what's that going to do to inflation? This whole thing is just a mess ready to explode. And it seems like this was a black swan, what the Houthis are doing in this entire situation. Now, it's playing out in real time, but it has incredible potency for the financial system. We're going to be on it on this channel. We're on top of this as it's developing, this situation. But I'm just laying out some of the points to you guys of how important this really is. But most people out there do not have a clue. They just, the Houthis, they're not paying any attention to the news or whatever. And they don't have any clue of how this could affect them in the real world here. Just another long list of things that... one last Ukraine aid package is planned before the money runs out, the White House says. What do they think that's going to do? Make Ukraine win? Is that going to make Ukraine win that one? I'm just asking this question. Do they think it's going to make Ukraine win the war? And if Ukraine does lose the war, let's just... I mean, what about all that money we've spent? Do we get it back? Just questions I'm asking here about this. But they're going to send them one more, I guess. More. How much more are they going to send them, I'm wondering here. Is it in billions? It says Senate Republicans earlier this month blocked an emergency spending bill with $50 billion for new Ukrainian aid. I don't see the price of this next one, this next package here. Even if the Senate were to reach an agreement and pass the bill this week, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, where a significant number of Republicans have voiced opposition to additional Ukraine aid, it's not due to return to work until January 8th. But I guess, according to this, I don't know how much they're going to send them in this one last Ukraine aid package. Storms in the United States Northeast kill 4 people and leave thousands without power. Everywhere around me they're without power. I just happen to be in one little spot that still has power. I experienced this storm last night. You ever heard a train? That's what the wind sounded like going through the trees. And sitting here, and I was just saying, I hope my power don't go out. I hope the house was shaking, and wind, you could hear the gusts creaking, making the house creak. It was just like those gusts were, I'm going to say that they were in excess of hurricane force last night, and that, you'd hear them coming through the trees like a quarter mile away. Roar, and getting closer and closer, and then it would hit. Wham! It was scary. It was quite literally scary last night, The lights flickered a few times, You didn't used to get storms like this. We had one just a week ago that was almost as bad as this one. Knocked out nearly 100,000 people without power, and right now there's thousands without power here right now. And rain, the ground is, you can't even walk on the ground there. It's just so wet now at this point. We got so much moisture we didn't need, So I'm glad I still got power and I can still do a show for you guys today, But this is the kind of situation we're facing here in Atlantic Canada, which is part of New England. The reason why Nova Scotia is called Nova Scotia, Nova means new, and Scotia means Scotland. This was New Scotland, So you go down there and you got New York, York over in England. They named everything in New England after the old country, you know. And so it's all part of New England. A lot of people don't know that. Just because it's on the Canadian side. See, New Brunswick, is on the Canadian side. And so they named a lot of the cities in that whole region after cities in the old world, cities in England and things like that. I mean, yeah, most of you guys probably know that, but a few people out there probably don't know and never heard of that before. Israel strikes South Gaza and raids a hospital in the north as war grinds on with renewed United States support. And the Houthis say they ain't gonna quit until all of this is done. But this could blow up into something much bigger, a regional war. Right on the edge, right on the cusp of this becoming a regional war. Yemen's Houthis will not stop Red Sea attacks until Israel-Gaza war ends. It's not costing them much, the Houthis, and it's the missiles that they're using are not real expensive missiles, and this is just like a win for the Houthis and a lose for us. Requires very little effort for them. And for us, it's going to just impact every aspect of our society. One of the biggest, what could I call it? Win-win-win in the history of warfare is going on right here. For the least amount of effort, for the maximum amount of punishment for a huge foe, what they consider a huge foe, which was the United States. And so it's a real... Okay, we're going to move on and take a look at the silver price today. And we're going to do... Well, I got all the charts here. Heck, I'll run through them all. Gold price is at $20.41 today. And we're seeing the silver price at $24.05. So it's up today a little bit. And we're looking at platinum at $961 today. And palladium at $12.37 today. Now, taking a look at cryptocurrencies today, and we're taking a look at Bitcoin at 41,895. Now, it was 42,000 earlier when I checked the charts. It's come down just a little bit. Ethereum is at 21.54 today, and XRP is at 59.9 cents today. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, like I say, it's soaring high at 37,496. And oh, by the way, for all you investors in the Dow, don't those cuts that you've already priced in, sorry, but you ain't going to get them. In other words, you ain't going to get your gravel to pave your driveway. That's it. I mean, the Fed, they're when they get this, when this starts to impact all of this inflation that's going to come from having to ship everything around Cape Horn, and oil prices start to go up, well, the Fed's going to stay put, I think. I think they're just going to sit on what they got, and they're not going to have any cuts next year, because this is going to strike next year. And so they haven't found that out yet. They haven't figured it out yet, but they will. When they do, the market's going to drop, but the Fed ain't going to, unless the market drops significantly, price below correction values. It's got to go through that level and get lower than that even. the Fed ain't going to react. The Fed will react if it goes low enough, though. You know, the old saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Crude oil's at $73.98. It's up $1.51 today. And, you know, what was crude oil is, first off, the United States produces quite a lot of crude. And there's been a little bit of an inventory glut on the market. It's driven crude oil prices down somewhat. Think about this for a minute, you know, I mean, the Saudis over there, you know, they can cut their amount that they sell, but they need to sell a certain amount. So it's kind of a tenuous market right now. And I think you can expect crude oil prices to go up with this, what's going on over there in the Gulf. And that's going to have an impact on everything you buy. Taking a look at bonds and rates today, we're looking at falling yields today. The 10-year is 3.92. It's fell 3.6 basis points today. And the U.S. 30-year is at 4.03, and it's fell 3.8 basis points today. And taking a look at the U.S. dollar index at 102.13, and the dollar's falling today. Thank you guys for listening to my show. Like and subscribe. Hit that notification icon. If you've got friends, tell them about my show, please. I really appreciate you guys watching my show. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Have a great day. Bye-bye.